Hey, it's Shamaree. I'm a marriage and family therapist turned intimacy coach and relationship expert, and I empower women to be fully uninhibited and fulfilled in their intimate and sexual relationships. And we are back for another live. Today, we are going to be talking about rejection and how we can manage that gracefully. With our head held high, at least most of the time. And my hair is wet, it's still drying, so I'm gonna try to make this pretty quick, so I'm not like dripping down my back. But hello, come in. We're talking about rejection today, and I am gonna kind of try to break it down into like three different things that you would need to have in check in order to be able to manage rejection gracefully and well. And so the first thing that I'm going to say, and this is my answer for everything, so know yourself very, very well. So be very self-aware. So the more that we know ourselves, the more that we understand who we are as a person. So if a person tells us that we're not enough, we're not what they're looking for, they're not into it, that doesn't change our perception of ourselves. And I used to say all of the time, nothing that you say about me can change how I feel about me. And that's kind of like the basis of like my confidence. So like for better or for worse. So like you can tell me I'm the most amazing person in the world. And I accept that and I love that. Thank you. But that doesn't change how I feel about myself. And also on the other side of that, you can tell me that I'm the worst human you've ever met. And because I know myself really well, that doesn't change how I feel about myself. And so that's always going to be my answer for everything ever in life, is to know yourself very, very well and to be very self-aware. And I've talked about this plenty of times before, ways that you can kind of get to know yourself and to like really examine who you are as a human being, and who you are outside of the roles that you play, because that's another thing that people tend to have a hard time with. They don't really know who they are as a person. They know that they're a great friend, maybe they're a great mom, or a wonderful girlfriend, wife, whoever, whatever, right? But they don't really know who they are if I ask, who are you, the person? And so that's very important for you to get to know. I have content on that, and you can also book a call with me if that's something that you would like to explore. And I do not have any more breakthrough calls for the rest of 2023. So if you missed it, you missed it. But that doesn't mean that you cannot start fresh in 2024. 2024 though, there is going to be a $1 fee for the breakthrough calls, because people don't show up to sometimes, and is taking up space that someone else could have had. So it's $1. It's not gonna break your pockets. You can budget now if you need to save. But this way, people tend to take things more seriously when they are invested in it. So it's just $1, but it's still a 30-minute breakthrough call, and we can kind of talk about it, and I can help you create a plan to better know yourself. But that's always number one. Know yourself very, very well. Be very self-aware. Then after that, it's all about mindset. And I have like tons of activities and things in my workbook. And this is what I do with clients. I'm actually going to do this with some clients today, later on. But we need to work on the mindset. So if you guys know about CBT, if you've been in therapy or anything like that, the theory behind that is it's not necessarily what happens as in the action, the event. It's more so how you think about that event, that action, and how you feel about it. That kind of determines how you move and what happens from there. And so there's plenty of ways that we can view one situation, right? So like we can all have a different feeling about the very same thing that happened. And that's kind of the idea, is understanding that your mindset controls how you feel and how you react. So if you can look at something differently typically we can act differently, right? And so sometimes when someone's saying that they're not into us or that they're not interested, or maybe even they're saying that you're not enough, you're lacking something that maybe they're looking for, if you look at that as like, man, they're right and I'm not good enough, you look for all of the evidence to support their claim, then you're gonna move as if you're not good enough. You're gonna believe that maybe you're gonna stop putting yourself out there, maybe you're not gonna keep looking for your person, like you're gonna stop dating, you're gonna stay a little bit more to yourself, or maybe you're just gonna be a lot more guarded, and the more guarded that we are, the less that we allow people in. So it's a whole spiral, it's a whole snowball effect that happens just from this one event. Whereas if we look at that event like, okay, they're not interested, and that's completely to do with them. That ain't got nothing to do with me, because I know myself. I know that I'm a great person. I know I have a lot of things to offer, right? So like, it can't be me. And I joke about this a lot, but I really do my best not to take anything personally. Even if it is personal, I don't take it personally, because even your perception and your feeling, even if you're saying you're like this and you do this, that's still your perception of me. So it's still being filtered through your lens, right? It's your feeling about it. That doesn't mean it's an absolute truth, right? And so I don't take it personally. If you don't want to talk to me anymore, you think I'm a terrible person, I tend not to take that personally, because I know who I am. And that's why knowing yourself first is always going to be my answer, because that will help you to kind of weed through what's valid and what's not. So if someone says they're not interested, they don't want to pursue you, you're not good enough, or whatever it is that they say to you, if they're brushing you off, you're trying to like initiate some physical contact and they're not accepting of it, that has everything to do with them and probably very little to do with you. So if you think about yourself, and this is something that I've had to do as well, is that I would be very sensitive to being turned down or rejected when it comes to like physical intimacy, because as a survivor of sexual assault, it took me a while to get to a point where I'm comfortable with putting myself out there, right? So now that I'm putting myself out there, I'd be extremely sensitive to rejection, and any slight feeling that I'm being rejected, I would immediately be defensive and upset, and like I'm not even gonna try. So like it could be the even slightest little thing, like if I touch you and you just don't seem excited about it, I would be very upset, and I feel like that was rejection. But I wasn't really aware or thinking that there's things that they maybe have going on that have nothing to do with me. So it's not necessarily about me, that I'm not good enough, or I'm not attractive, I'm not sexy, I'm not whatever. It could just be they tired, or they had a long day, maybe they're stressed, maybe they're just not in that type of mood, and that has nothing at all to do with me. And it really forced me to look at myself, because I would do that too. Like if I had a long day, if I'm tired, if I'm mad at you, you get on my nerves, like I would brush you off very, very easily, and I wouldn't even think about how that is going to affect you. But when I did it, I fully understood that it didn't have anything to do with that person in particular. It had to do with where I am. But when it's happening to us, we feel like, no, this is very personal. You're doing this to me on purpose. And so that's why it comes back to the mindset thing. Just changing how we feel about it, changing how we think about it. Whatever they do or do not do doesn't change who you are. And so if we know ourselves, if we're being our best self, and hopefully we are, if we're not, we need to check ourselves, and we need to do that. But if we're being our best self, someone not seeing or receiving that is not a reflection of us. It's more so a reflection of them, right? And so that would be number 2. And then number 3, this also very general. Another thing I'm going to tell you to do, whether you have a fear of rejection or not, is to have coping strategies. You always need to have at least a handful, I say, of coping strategies to help you to manage, because we're human. Like it happens. Like I said, I do my best not to take things personally, and not to allow someone rejecting me, telling me no, in a negative way and like personalize it, but I'm very much a human, and so there may be times when maybe I'm feeling a little bit more sensitive because there's other things going on, and that was just like the cherry on top, and now it does kind of trigger you. But you want to be able to better manage those emotions so that we're not acting out, or that we're not building up walls that we've worked so hard to build, to like knock down, or we've worked so hard to connect with a person, and now we're going to allow them telling us no this time to ruin all of that, right? And so like we gotta zoom out. I love to tell people to zoom out a little bit, because we get very stuck on very specific things, super up close. But if you zoom out, this is one instance that doesn't define you or even the relationship. And even if this is somewhat of a pattern, a lot of times when you're feeling rejection or you're being rejected, it's so many other things, and like it's pretty much a symptom of a bigger issue. So people come to me like, oh, we're not having sex. They always say no, they don't want to do it. And that's typically a symptom of something bigger, something more, something probably in a different area of the relationship altogether. But they feel like that is the issue because it's easier to see and to notice. And so that's really important, making sure that we're treating the symptoms with our coping mechanisms, and that can be being able to take time, self-care, if you need to like check back in with yourself, if they said something that really kind of triggered you, like really going back to what made you feel good, what made you feel confident, and doing those things so that you don't lose that feeling of confidence in yourself. Whether that's taking a walk, taking some time separate from them, or whatever that looks like. If it's support, having a support person, someone who is trusted, someone you can speak to, whether that's a professional or not. Sometimes we have to be careful with the people who are not professional in our lives, making sure that we're getting guidance that's helpful, and not just looking for someone to co-sign our feelings, or even just to hype us up for the sake of hyping us up. Sometimes we need people who are going to keep us accountable too. So if there is something that I did in a situation as to why maybe they are not into being intimate with me, I have to also acknowledge that. And so when we're looking for that coping, that support, whatever it is, making sure that it's helpful and then that it's healthy. We can very easily go to a very negative place, and I've done it before. I've been there. I would seek that attention elsewhere. I would get very spiteful, and those are ways to cope, but it's not necessarily healthy. It's not getting me to the goals that I want, which I like connection. I like to feel close to people, so we have to keep those things in mind. So again, to run it back through, again, it's very general. So like every situation is going to be a little bit different, but these things are going to apply to every situation. So one, we need to know ourselves. Be extremely self-aware of how we behave, who we are as a person, what we value, what's important to us, how we interact, all of those things, so that when someone says something or does something that seems like a rejection, we can take it as redirection. So like, you know that quote, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection, right? So like we can see it that way because we know ourselves so well that what you're saying don't even make sense. Like that's not even right. So I don't have to internalize it. We don't want to internalize things that don't make sense for us. If it doesn't make sense, we don't have to internalize it. It's sad, it's upsetting that a person may not want you, or they may not see the character or who you feel that you are. But again, we take it back to number 2, which is the mindset. That can have everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. That is their perception, that's their experience. It doesn't mean that is an absolute truth. And so someone telling you no, or that they're not interested, doesn't mean that you're not attractive, that you're not enough, you're not sexy, you're not a catch. It doesn't mean any of those things. It could very well just mean that they have a different vision in mind. They have something else that they're looking for. And that doesn't mean that it's better or worse than who you are. And we get lost in that comparison. So that's another thing that we are not going to do. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't do anything but make you feel bad a lot of the time. So mindset is everything. Think about alternatives. So if your first inclination is to think, okay, damn, I'm not attractive, I'm not good enough, nobody's going to want me, challenge those thoughts. What are some other reasons that this person may have rejected you or may have turned you down? What is another reason other than those? So if we list out all the reasons, there's maybe 100, like maybe more. And even if you can only come up with 5, that's still 5 other alternatives. We don't know for sure that it's that you're not attractive, because it's probably not, but that is one thing that you can come up with, but we can come up with alternatives. So I'm never going to say it's not possible, even though it's probably not likely. But it's possible. There's a possibility, right, that they don't think you're attractive, but that doesn't mean that no one's going to think you're attractive. Maybe they just don't think that, and that's fine. That's one person, right? And so we definitely change that mindset, change how we think about something. That's going to change how we feel. So if we think that we're good enough, we're going to feel more confident. We're going to move more confident. If we think that we're not good enough, we're going to feel terrible. We're going to feel sad. Maybe we're going to feel hurt. All of these are negative emotions, right? So like not happy feelings, right? And so then we're going to move with that at the forefront. We're going to move like we're hurt. We're going to move like we're sad. We're going to move in a way that we feel like we need to protect ourselves, right? And so it's all about our perception and how we take things. So that's why mindset is going to be second. After that, also the coping skills, because ultimately everyone is going to experience some form of rejection. You're not going to get the job. Maybe you lose a friend. Maybe you break up with someone because they're no longer interested. Maybe there's going to be a night where you want to have sex and they don't. They're tired. They roll over. They go to bed. They pay you no attention. So we all are going to experience that. Maybe not every day. Hopefully not every day. But we're going to experience it. It's reality. So we want to make sure that we have our coping strategies ready, like we know what they are. We know exactly what to do when we feel this way, right? So when I start to feel that tinge, like, oh, that sucked, like, what can I do immediately? Don't let it fester, don't let it grow. But what can I do immediately to make myself okay? So maybe you're not going to feel happy that it happened, but we want to be okay with it. Like, okay, that sucked, but I can manage it. And you want to feel like you're in control of that feeling, that thought, and the next behavior, rather than it being in control of you and leading you down a path that's probably not going to be helpful to you. So those 3 things, like I said, are going to apply to every situation. If you have a more specific situation, obviously there's going to be details and things in there that you can do depending on what the rejection is. And we can definitely talk about that. You can drop a comment below. You can also schedule a breakthrough call. Like I said, I don't have any more breakthrough calls for the rest of this year. However, in January, we will start them back up and they will be $1. And so if you want to schedule something to speak with me to create the start of a plan, and then we can definitely do that. I will be accepting one-on-one clients for January as well. So that is how you start one-on-one with me. We meet to make sure we're a good fit, and that your issues are things that I feel like I am able to assist you with, and we can kind of go from there. But like I said, my hair is still wet, it's still drying. I'm going to get up out of here so I can fix that situation, right? But I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. Again, if you're watching this later and you have questions or anything, you can still drop a comment. I'll do my best to get back to you guys. But yeah, I'll see you guys later.